They say there is a sound to every living thing upon this earth. A cloud, a sunset, a tree, a flower, a coral growth. They say that if our ears were fine enough tuned, that we could hear, still circling the airwaves, the words of great men in other times. Of all the sounds that mix upon this earth, the sounds of poverty are the cruelest sounds. The poor have always known poverty is the war that never ends. The poor have always known no victory is more important to win. Urban poverty is the cruelest poverty of all, because the trapped inhabitants can't live off the land. Poverty is not unique to Jamaica. It is shared by the great nations and the small nations alike. Great countries have been dramatically humbled by the problem of urban blight. Here in Jamaica, we have found a way. We do not say it is the only way.
When good things are done, people write books about them. Some people write songs about them. Some people compose poetry, and others make films about them. If a country picks one small spot and says this spot is to be the rectum of the whole city, is to be the place where everything that has no further use is to be deposited, then they must ask themselves the question, what do you expect from the people? West Kingston was the site of the abattoir. It is the location of the morgue. It has the biggest cemetery in the entire island. It has one of the main sewage treatment plants. It had the worst garbage dump, known as Dungle, and it had the worst slum in the entire country, known as Vocational. Vocational had no roads, it had no lights, it had no water, it had no sewerage. 2 public latrines and 2 community pipes served its 5,000 residents. People lived in discarded cars, bits and pieces of scrap metal and cardboard tied together. Here was a nest where the worst criminals gathered and stamped their image on the face of West Kingston. What we set out to do was to reverse the process of decay, to demonstrate that even the wasteland of Vocational could be reclaimed, that out of the worst could be created the best. But it was a hard road to travel.
It's a hard road to travel, and a mighty long way to go. We are gonna get
The story of Tivoli Gardens cannot be told without reference to the Honorable Edward Seaga, the social engineer who was the architect of this amazing physical and spiritual transformation. As the people's representative in Parliament, as Minister of Development, then as Minister of Finance and Planning, he was largely responsible for the concept of development of the area. Vocational was an inherited problem. In August 1962, when Jamaica gained its independence under the leadership of the Jamaican national hero, the Right Excellent Sir Alexander Bustamante, it faced a complex of economic and social problems that had accumulated over 3 centuries of colonial rule. Jamaica, like other countries, had been experiencing a shift of its population from rural to urban areas, and with this shift, an accumulation of social problems. Despite the rapid pace of industrialization, the cities, particularly Kingston, had not been able to keep pace with the rapid expansion of its population. In 1962, when the Union Jack was replaced by the green, black, and gold flag of the newly independent nation, the seething economic and social problems had reached major proportions. The symbolism of the flag reflected the optimism of the people. Hardships there are, but the land is green, and the sun shineth. The new government set about to attack its problem with energy and determination. And in less than 10 years, spearheaded by its young, dynamic Prime Minister, Right Honorable Hugh Shearer, produced remarkable results. In many respects, Tivoli Gardens is an example of its outstanding achievements.
What we set out to do was to reverse the physical and human erosion of the area and to show that the worst could become the best.
And so began the transfiguration of Baco Wall. What would be their plan? Burn it up? Blow it up? Raise it to the ground? But would it be enough to change old things for new? To build new tenements over old tattoos? The plan was unique. It was not enough only to replace the shells in which people lived out their lives. More important was the way of life within the shell.
It is one thing to erect new buildings and remove people into them. But unless you can induce a higher standard of behavior, a higher standard of living among the people, you will simply end up with a higher class of slum. To overcome this, the focus of attention must be the people, what they need and what they want. Out of a slum, we grew a garden, and we called it Tivoli Gardens.
Tivoli is unlike any other urban renewal project in that it provides a full range of community services that take care of individuals, their needs and their wants from before birth until death.
The four-building complex known as the Mother and Child Center is, as its name implies, a center devoted to taking care of the needs of mothers and infants. Like life itself, let's begin with birth. In fact, before the event of birth itself. A prenatal clinic and a home economic center educate the mother-to-be in the basics of nutrition and child care. The child gets the benefit of proper nutrition, and the mother gets the benefit of proper medical care before the child is born, which is, of course, the best way to give the infant a good start in life, and to raise the level of attainment in later life. The child is born in relative comfort. A modern, air-conditioned maternity center operated by the Ministry of Health. Adjoining the maternity center, a daycare center liberates the parents to work, but not at the expense of the child. The center accepts children aged 3 months to 3 years. From 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. each day, these children are tended. They are bathed, fed, redressed in clean clothing, amused, and taught the important things of daily living. At 3 years, the children are transferred to the infant school section of this complex. Here, trained specialists in early childhood education help to prepare the youngsters for the years of school that lie ahead. But for the Tivoli Gardens youngster, infant school is a fun experience. And even if one has to put up with the tedium of learning, there are always pleasant diversions, like playgrounds with swings and chutes, and mealtime with wholesome meals and milk. Choral singing makes the whole thing worthwhile. Out of the ruins of Bacawal, where the basic education was crime and survival for today, now there is learning for tomorrow. Serious school business begins at the age of 6, when the child enters the Denham Town Primary School across the road from Tivoli Gardens, a sparkling new building where trained teachers ply their gentle art.
While we try to give the students a proper grounding in the traditional disciplines, we also place great stress on developing the student's curiosity towards life and equipping him the best we can to cope with a changing environment.
At the age of 12, students transfer to the Tivoli Gardens Comprehensive School. On completion, this modern, well-equipped complex will be set in a spacious park-like garden, complete with fountains, tropical flora, and 10 acres of playing fields and courts that will do justice to the status of its champion netball and softball teams. As the name implies, the comprehensive school boasts a range of academic, vocational, and technical programs. Specialization comes at age 15. Youngsters unsuited for careers in the arts or sciences can find their measure in home economics, arts and crafts, commercial training, or vocational programs.
At this point, we're going to observe the various oxidizing strengths of different chemicals. You know that in this jar we have potassium permanganate.
The program of the comprehensive school is supplemented by the program of the community center, the focus of social activities in Tivoli Gardens. It is a place teeming with life, a structure large and imposing, but with a warmth and vitality uniquely its own. It is a place of learning, of business, of work, and of play, where one can watch a game of skill or discuss one's problem.
But you're a carpenter, yes, right? I wouldn't use you as a laborer because if you have a skilled people, yeah. But we have a lot of laborers. So right now there are practically no carpenters unemployed in the area. Yes. No masons unemployed. No steel workers unemployed. So we'll get you something as a carpenter because we expect some calls soon.
The community center demonstrates the kind of forethought that had to go into the designing of the Tivoli Gardens experiment. For experiment it is, in total community development, in which the people participate in planning.
When the scheme was being laid out in 1963, as the minister responsible for town planning and for community development work, I worked closely with the Ministry of Housing in designing the layout of this area. But the layout by itself, while it solved some problems, would not take care of all of them. There were other major problems which had to be solved by providing a full range of services for the people. For many reasons, therefore, I did not wish to burden the government by singling out this area for special treatment. What we did do was to set up an organization known as the West Kingston Trust, whose job it would be to provide the centers to fully service the needs of the people. In fact, what we arranged was a partnership in which the trust provided the buildings and the government the services.
The West Kingston Trust is an organization set up under the trust laws of Jamaica. The beneficiaries of the trust are the people of West Kingston. The West Kingston Trust is comprised of businessmen and people of the area. The maternity center, the first of its type in Jamaica, was built by the Kiwanis Club of Kingston and donated to the trust. The daycare center and infant school were donated by Charles Chinloy, a well-known businessman who made his money in West Kingston. The Home Economics Center was donated by George Fong Yi, another Chinese businessman, himself a member of the West Kingston Trust. While these centers reflect the generosity of wealthy patrons, the community center is principally a product of the community. It represents 5 years of fundraising efforts by the people of the area, supplemented by the generosity of business and industry all over the island. These contributed cement, lumber, steel, roofing, lighting, and other building materials. Another triumph in the way that people can help people. So that where there was organized crime, there is now organized training. Where there were tombstones of death, there are now centers of life. Where there was garbage and decay, there are now playfields for youth. This area, once a cemetery, is now an open community playfield. It was created to take the pressure of use off the central playing field, which is reserved for competition and team practice. The community center serves as a stadium from which residents and their guests can watch sports contests on the central playing field. There are games for boys and girls alike, netball and basketball. Cricket, and of course, football. Tivoli Gardens is proud of its football team, which boasts a couple of national players. But sports is only one of the activities offered by the comprehensive program of the Ministry of Youth and Community Development in this center to serve the total individual and the full range of community needs. As was noted earlier, its vocational and technical programs complement those of the comprehensive school. Key punch operations, shorthand and typing, sales and cashiering, electronics. For adults wishing to improve themselves, an adult literacy program has been established. And for youngsters, a junior library is run by the Jamaica Library Services. Youth clubs provide for leadership, training, and constructive expression.
Give us faith always to seek that which is highest. Give us courage always to stand for that which we know to be right.
Here, in a well-designed crash training program operated by the Ministry of Labor, teenagers and young adults learn skills and techniques oriented to employment opportunities available in the area. Steel bending, masonry, wood turning, and carpentry.
No program to provide for outlets and services in this area could ignore the cultural life of the people. Indeed, West Kingston is a curious blend of deep cultural traditions and spontaneous cultural creativity. Tivoli gave the artist the canvas. Tivoli gave the sculptor the chisel. Tivoli gave the actor the platform.
My stomach is and skin, with the dark blood down with him, like great falls inside of wine, like fear.
Tivoli gave the musician the drum for the burst of creative activity which has flourished there. The old art form mingles with the new, and the combination produces the distinctive blend of a new product, rising from an old base. Revival is the base of music and dance. It is a rich religious experience which allows a liberating personal worship in song and dance. The music is fervent. The pop music of the country has borrowed its fervor and its rhythm.
Going down the road with a pistol in your way, Johnny, you're too bad. Whoa.
Here in this fashion show, the participants display the creativity and elegance of Tivoli youth.
Here we see how creative dance gives an accent to gracefulness. It comes hard, but with practice, constant practice, they'll one day master the demanding technique that have won many medals for other Tivoli dance groups before them. Folk singing has a way of reflecting the past. Folk singing has a way of bringing people together to share a common experience. Voices blend in song. Voices remember the past. Voices praise the new ideals. In a similar way, drama reflects the oral traditions of the country and its proud people. But the pride of Tivoli is its gold medal bugle and drum band. In daily life, the pattern of recreation leads to popular relaxation. To drink, to dance, to pass the time, to try one's hands at games of skill, the fun and games of the common people. This bar is one of 8 shops in the Tivoli shopping center, located in the central public square. This fountain in a garden setting against the backdrop of the playing field is the architectural relief between the shop on one side of the square and the community center on the other. In a corner of the community center, a small two-man police post is located. But there is little work for them to do. For Tivoli, unlike Backer Wall, has by far the lowest crime rate across the crime-prone waterfront of Kingston. Residents can walk by day or night without fear. And visitors too, the curious and the interested, celebrities and royalty, heads of government and international agencies, students and sightseers all come to Tivoli Gardens on frequent tours. For these homeowners and tenants, Tivoli Gardens represents not just a place. There are different types of accommodations to suit different income levels, deliberately so, to retain in the area higher income residents who are community leaders. For what good would it do for a community to prosper if, as a result, it lost the fruits of its prosperity? The important thing is to provide room for all to grow. The important elements of social control and communal stability are built into the pattern of residential construction and ownership. Of the 1,000 dwelling units in Tivoli Gardens constructed by the Ministry of Housing, 1/3 are high-rise rental units. 2/3 are units sold on a long-term basis and paid for on easy monthly terms. The sales units are of 3 basic types and prices. The terrace units, a string of attached homes with common walls, but a separate property line. The duplex units, and single-unit bungalows. To maintain property value, the more expensive units are sited on the most desirable locations.
The single factor carrying the greatest weight in determining success or failure in creating a community is the layout of residences and service centers in the area. This was a positive plan in mind in the concept of Tivoli Gardens. Firstly, the rental units, because of the lack of ownership and lesser degree of property care, were not congregated in any one area, or the result would soon have been a mini slum. Instead, we scattered them in pockets surrounded by the owners of purchased units, and so brought the pressure of higher levels of property care to bear on the rental unit occupants. The result was a much improved level of living in external and internal home care. Secondly, the centers must be strategically located, that is, central to the community, so that each individual is within easy distance. And all this must be put together in one residential package, which must not be so large that it splits naturally into neighborhoods, thereby destroying the strength of unity and stability that comes from a single community. This is the overall basic concept. But there are intricate social forces embodied in the lifestyle of a people, which can be put to work to aid this concept as it unfolds.
This long time y'all never see you. Come make we walk and talk. This long time y'all never see you. Come make we walk and talk.
What does the beauty of nature have to do with the development of a community? Flowers and parks and open spaces are visual attractions and breathing spaces that provide the lungs of a community. But more so, every flower, every tree, every green area is an inexpensive visual reminder to the new residents that they are in new surroundings, requiring new patterns of behavior. Just as the elements of decay, dirt, and garbage were conditioning factors in the old way of life, just so will the carefully manicured gardens in the people's parks and the refreshing fountains decorated with lights recondition old standards and produce new discipline and behavioral codes. But it will take time, many years of trial and error. The story of the community bench explains how we learn together as we live together and plan. First, there was the upright bench. Men sat on the upright and soiled the seat with their feet. No one sat on it. So we built a bench without a back, and they slept on it. No one sat on it. So now we have designed a curved bench which could neither be stepped on nor slept on. At last it served its purpose. People sat on it. The work isn't over. It goes on. What we have learned as we have traveled this hard road is where we will now begin in working these concepts into the next areas. In the adjoining Denham town, and in the Hellshire Hills, where a city of 300,000 people is to be built on this self-contained community principle over the next 20 years.
For the busy Edward Seaga, the social architect of Tivoli Gardens, private moments with his family are rare. But the time spent with wife Mitzi, daughter Annabelle, and son Christopher are precious and rewarding.
What's the name of the donkey? Christopher, you tell me the name of the donkey. Leroy?
Hello, Jean.
Can you read all of it?
Rewarding, too, are the moments spent with the people of West Kingston, who hold a special place in his heart.
In everything I need.
They return his love with equal fervor.
My shield and hiding place. Lost as I'm a brother, Seaga is to me. Lost as I'm a brother, Seaga is to me. He's my dearest friend in everything I need.
10 years ago, the place where we sit and stand tonight was a rubble of tattoos and thatches and jungle. It is not that the houses were bad. Yes, they were bad in the sense that they were not substantial homes. But what was worse was the fact that the people in the community at that time were letting down the name of the larger area of people around them known as the community of Western Kingston. They gave this place a bad reputation. West Kingston was carved out in the whole city as being the place where everything would be dumped that had no further use in life. What we have tried to do over the last 10 years, and I say we because no one person is responsible. I am your representative, but you are the people who have to work with me to do these things, is to take the things that were not making any contribution to the betterment of the community, areas of waste, the back of walls, and transform them from being the worst into being the best. If this part of the city had simply been rid of the slum that was there, of the haven that it created for every known criminal in the city, of all evil things that used to go on, if the area was only leveled so that one could see from one end to the other, we could say that we would have done the area a good deed and that we would have done a proud job in making the community better. But we didn't just level it. We didn't just remove the stain that it was upon the community. What we did in addition to that was to put something in its place. And what was put in its place? We have built here a community and a township which is a model for the entire island. But I want to tell you that what we have built here is a model which has meaning in many other parts of the world. Has meaning in every big city in many big countries where there are problems of strife within the city, problems of the whole structure of the city being decayed. And what we have managed to do here in removing the garbage heap and replacing it with play fields, in eliminating the old tattoos and the ranches and putting bungalows and high-rise units in their place, in removing the tracks that had no beginning and no end and putting highways in the place, in bringing light into an area that had no light, no water, no storage, in providing proper homes and decent homes. We have not only taken the man out of the slum, but we have taken the slum out of the man. And this is a lesson that can well be learned elsewhere in the world. And it is for that reason, among others, that we seek to put down here a record of the transformation, a record of the transfiguration, a record of the massive change that has taken place, so that it will be known to others as to how this little gem that has been created out of the dust and the ashes might be a gem that can hang on some other necklace around the neck of some other country elsewhere in this world.
It is a